Thanks, Winston. Very grateful to be here. This used to terrify me. It still does. In fact, I was so scared and nervous over the week. My body brought me to a high fever and the sickest I'd been for a while over the weekend to release all that didn't serve in order to help me to prepare for this. But I'm on the mend, so thank goodness for painkillers and lozenges. Most of my life, I used to be extremely shy, introverted, highly neurotic, and very sensitive. You know, in school, growing up in Western society was extremely tough. Let me bring you back to high school. Having been diagnosed and labeled with social phobia and depression, I ran with it. You know, those narratives continue to replicate in my mind. And the neuroses and anxieties built up. The fear of being judged, of being deemed wrong and not as good as, was so debilitating, it caused me great suffering. In fact, so often when there was class presentations, I would skip class because it was just so incredibly tough for me to put myself in front of people, to be judged, to be possibly deemed wrong. And that really caused me so much pain and prevented me from being able to do well in school. I dropped out in high school, didn't graduate, and that pattern of suffering, of debilitation, of failures continued for years afterwards. In fact, throughout my late teens and early 20s, I went through intense bouts of bulimia and agoraphobia. Only last year did I realize what I went through was bulimia. I had no idea that men could get eating disorders, and I had no idea that eating disorders were a mental illness. But now I'm looking back, I am so grateful for the experiences I had in those years, for they helped me to bring me into a state where I had to separate myself from society, from the norm. I spent so much time by myself and found my own ways to start to heal. I had so much time by myself that I started exploring different kinds of thoughts, different belief systems. I started bringing different medicine into my life. Movement medicine like working out and yoga that helped me cleanse the fear energy. You know, mind medicine, learning from teachers and healers throughout the different contemporary and ancient times. Body medicine with better foods and natural energies to help cleanse the toxicity I had built up from living the normal lifestyle. And consciousness medicine, you know, even experimentation with marijuana and psychedelics, even though living in Calgary and coming from a mainland Chinese immigrant family, that caused me so much intense shame and guilt that had this crazy dual effect of helping but also creating more shame and guilt within me. But I'm really blessed for that because it didn't cause me to go off track of the norm and so therefore I found my own ways to create success and enjoyment in my life. And throughout my 20s, bit by bit, I kept going and kept deepening my practices, taking yoga teacher training, emotional development workshops, but just more than ever, just having started developing compassion for myself and just allowing an ease into my life. And through that, as I gained the willingness to have that compassion for myself, I started to see the value of having compassion for my life and others, and just allow myself to be kinder and authentic and genuine like I always knew I wanted to be. By the time I was in my late 20s, I was a different person. I remember in my early 20s, I was such a nervous wreck just going to retail jobs and could barely keep down a fast food job. I thought I was so broken. It's like, why was I like this? But by the time in my late 20s, I was top salesman in whatever retail companies I was a part of. And I realized I was so much freer than most of the people that look like me in the society, even though others may have more stuff or success than me. And I realized what success really was about, what freedom, what life really was about. And then when I turned 30, Spirit came into my life, and through synchronicity, led me to have different spiritual experiences, getting readings, and then my body injured myself because I was working at Halt Renfu, still pushing hard at the materialistic life, that as an Asian that I so wanted. But that injury led me to a job of natural healing and wellness that brought me so many connections with people. And through those connections, brought me to spiritual events where I started receiving messages about my soul. Until I turned 30, I had no idea I had a soul. I come from a culture that did not teach me what faith was, what the possibility life truly was. It's so many, I believe, are lost in consumerism and materialism, and they don't know why they're suffering, like I sure didn't know why earlier in life. But those messages led me to have the courage to move to Vancouver with nothing waiting for me here, but pursuing the sense of destiny that I could possibly create something better with my life. I could actually maybe help others to create inspiration and see the beauty in the world that I started learning to do throughout my 20s. So I came looking for that, moved to Vancouver, and that's when life gave me so many more opportunities to gain more courage by stepping into areas, into communities that previously I thought I had no idea how to. And then I began to realize what I've chosen. I can validate my path to gain compassion. And realizing the pain I was experiencing was the distance between what I thought, what my ego, the part of myself that tried to keep me safe by putting a shield around me and holding me in smallness, to what my soul knew about me. And realizing that if I was feeling bad about myself, the fact that I'm feeling bad was because that was not the truth of my soul. And therefore, I now realize why so many are in deep suffering and never knowing why. Perhaps they never had the chance to find that sense of compassion for themselves. And through exploring the beautiful spiritual communities in Vancouver, and now stepping into spiritual jobs like reading tarot and doing healings for people, then of course learning about all the minefields of so-called spiritual belief systems as well, and New Age thoughts, and realizing, there's falseness everywhere, but it takes really understanding who one is, who I am. Can I allow true healing for myself? And through that, I realize what has helped me to gain the sense of ever-increasing sense of freedom and purpose, and how that first time I stepped on the stage to tell my story of awakening and realizing why we chose to be here in this very transformative times, because there's going to be more changes than ever coming up in a few decades. And I believe we truly are all needed. There's a reason why we chose the way we suffered, and why some of our greatest fears and areas of resistance are there for us. I believe for myself is to help to support me into realizing the strength I do have, into being willing to step into that false evidence appearing real, and recognizing there is nothing to be afraid of. I deserve to take up my own space. Even though so much of my life I never gave myself the chance to think of myself as anything significant or worthy. But I realized if I allowed myself my own love, my own freedom, then because my belief in entanglement and oneness and what this really is about, I can then help spread and share that energy with our world. And perhaps we can all create a better world together. Thank you.